Welcome to the Unveiled Epic Echoes channel. Today, we're diving deep into an unexplored historical mystery. The night hums softly as if the past itself is breathing, and our story begins in a quiet corner of New England where salt air curls around brick buildings, and the Atlantic keeps its ancient counsel. In a town that once printed a newspaper no one was meant to fully understand. A paper called the Sentinel Ledger, founded in 1809 by Elias Hawthorne, a man remembered in local records as stubborn, mild-mannered, and obsessively precise. The kind of printer who measured margins twice and believed ink carried memory, and it was said that on certain nights, when the presses rolled long after midnight, Elias whispered to the type as though it might answer back, which perhaps it did, because the ledger began to publish stories that had not yet happened, tucked among shipping manifests and sermons, written in the calm, factual tone of ordinary news, describing events that readers would only recognize years later, fires not yet lit. Elections not yet held, wars not yet declared, and the first of these went unnoticed, dismissed as coincidence. A farmer's barn described as burning in the August issue, though it stood whole until October when lightning split the sky, and the barn fell exactly as printed, down to the number of cows lost and the smell of singed hay. And people laughed nervously and said time was a circle anyway. But Elias did not laugh. He only locked the proof pages in a drawer carved with symbols no one else could read. Symbols learned, according to a single letter preserved in the town archive, from a monk he met while traveling in the Mediterranean as a young man. A monk who guarded a library beneath a crumbling monastery where papyrus slept in stone silence. Texts older than Rome, older than Athens, texts that spoke of echoes moving forward as well as back. Of moments leaving imprints that could be read by those who knew how to listen. And Elias had listened, late into candle-lit nights, until the future began to murmur like a tide. Fast forward a century and a half and the ledger is a decaying building with boarded windows and a historical marker no one stops to read. Until arrives a freelance reporter between jobs, grieving her father, chasing a sleepy assignment about forgotten newspapers for a regional magazine. Expecting dust and polite interviews, not the way the air inside the ledger building feels heavier, thicker, like a held breath. Nor the way her phone loses signal the moment she steps inside, nor the way the basement door stands ajar though the realtor swore it was sealed. And down there she finds the presses, iron beasts resting in shadow, and a single bound volume wrapped in oilcloth, warm to the touch, dated 5 years in the future, its headline calm and devastating, nomming a coastal evacuation. A storm surge swallowing neighborhoods' nose, including the street where she grew up, and her pulse slows in that strange way fear sometimes brings. As if her body wants her still enough to listen, she tells herself it's a hoax, an art piece. Yet the writing style is unmistakably early American, the same clipped, respectful cadence she studied in journalism school. And as she reads further, she finds references not only to weather but to discoveries. A dig in the Midwest revealing a stone calendar aligned to stars only visible 10,000 years ago, proof that ancient peoples mapped time with terrifying precision. A footnote mentions a translation matching fragments found beneath a monastery near the Aegean Sea, and feels the story turning, not toward sensation but toward responsibility, because the paper does not predict at random. It reports, as if the future has already happened somewhere else, and someone has simply taken notes. She spends days cross-referencing, nights dreaming of ink flowing backward, and when she tracks down a linguist who once cataloged Elias Hawthorne's marginalia, an old man with a voice like dry leaves, he tells her the symbols are a phonetic map for silence, pauses between moments, places where time thins, used by ancient scribes who believed history could be tuned like an instrument. That if you set the type just right, the echo would ring true, realizes the ledger was not warning or boasting. It was preserving, archiving the future the way other papers archived the past, because someone somewhere wanted a record that could not be altered by forgetting. And then the storm season accelerates, forecasts shift. The evacuation order is announced exactly as printed, right down to the phrasing, and publishes her article not as prophecy but as investigation, framing it as a historical curiosity, letting the truth hum beneath the surface, and readers feel it even if they cannot name it. The piece goes quietly viral, shared at night, read in bed, people saying it feels like wrapped in a lullaby, and in the final days before the storm, returns to the Ledger basement and prints one last edition, using the ancient symbols without fully understanding them, trusting the press the way Elias once did. And the paper reports not disaster, but aftermath, rebuilding, neighbors cooking together, children playing on higher ground, a town changed but alive. And when the storm passes and the waters recede, the future bends just enough to match the ink. Historians will later argue coincidence, skeptics will scoff, but the Ledger building will remain standing, and sometimes, late at night, you can almost hear the press breathe, a steady, comforting rhythm, reminding anyone who listens that time is not only something that happens to us, it is something we can hold gently, read slowly, and set down with care. And as sleep draws closer and the echoes soften, the story settles into quiet certainty that some truths are hidden not to be feared, but to be kept safe until we are ready to remember them. This mysterious journey ends here, but stay tuned for more untold stories in our next video. Subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon so you don't miss any new stories. Thank you, and see you again.